All right, hello. Wonderful. I'm going to keep this around, but I don't want to move away from the camera, so try not to use it. Yeah, thank you for the introduction. As Stephen said, he's part of the project, and there's a large number of people on this project. Actually, a number of people on this project are in here. So I'd love for people to put up their hands if they're on the Bookworm project. There's Loretta, there's Colleen, there's Cyan. Okay, now more broadly, who's part of the HathiTrust Research Center? Even larger, yeah. So what I'll be talking about today is this spin-off of the HTRC, which is the Bookworm project. And this is funded by an NEH implementation grant. We're a few months into a 2-year grant, and the important part is that it's an implementation grant. So a lot of what we're doing is we're building the scaffolding for research. We're actually creating things and with the intention of supporting future researchers. And then it's a collaboration between a number of different people. So Illinois, obviously, Indiana, Northeastern University, and Baylor College of Medicine. Our PIs are Stephen Downey and Erez Lieberman. Oh yeah, I forgot. Put up your hand if you're a PI. Okay. So what the Bookworm project intends to do is to provide scholarly access to the HathiTrust digital library. The HathiTrust digital library is pretty large. I'll give you numbers in a moment. But it hinges on this problem of reading. We all know the traditional, the preferred way of reading a book, of understanding a work. If you're looking at, say, Anne of Green Gables, you'll go and you'll read it closely, and you can appreciate it. You can learn things about that historical moment, about the culture involved. But then, what if you have 10 books that you want to understand, 100, maybe 1,000? Eventually, at some point, you get to a large enough scale where it's really difficult to do our ideal form of reading, which is reading every single one. I think Winston Churchill capped out at 5,000 books in his lifetime. So if this was a few years ago, somebody might talk about reading 2.0. I think what we're talking about is actually closer to reading 0.01 maybe. So with the Bookworm project, we try to look at what you can learn from large numbers of texts, ones that you feasibly can't read as much as you'd want to. And are there things about culture that we can learn, and about history, about the formation of language? So I said I would mention the numbers, and what we're dealing with is 4.9 million public domain texts, with an eventual goal of nearly 15 million digitized texts. That's 1.8 billion pages, or if you want to look at the billions and billions of words, which obviously was the title that Stephen came up with, we have 710 billion words in there. So here's what Bookworm looks like most basically. If anybody's seen the Google Ngrams viewer, which lets you visualize longitudinal trends in the language of the Google Books data, it looks very similar, right? So here I'm mapping out, there's a little laser, there we go. Here I'm mapping out love and hate. I took this screenshot a week ago when we had 326,000 texts. Now we have 4.5 million. But it's doing it over the entire corpus. There are a couple interesting things that you can find there. With the one difference from Google Ngrams Viewer being that you can actually click at any specific point and look at the texts that feed into that statistic. So here's another corpus level comparison between Beijing and the older Romanized. Oh, sorry, Beijing is the blue line, and Peking was the older Romanized version of the city name. Okay, that's interesting. But the power of Bookworm really comes in being able to facet along different categories. So you can facet across genres, you can facet across LC classes, subclasses, author gender. So you can ask more complicated questions like, don't tell me about everything you have. What about what about the occurrence of love between texts that are in the class of law, or philosophical and religious texts? Obviously, we know which one wins there. And if we add library science, it's sort of in the middle there. And then from there, you can ask more interesting questions, more fulfilling questions, like comparing literature that's been published in the US versus literature published in the UK. And you can compare themes and trends beyond these. So fundamentally, the idea of Bookworm is to give you a visual interface to try to make sense of large numbers of text. And it isn't the same as reading, but our purpose is to help you explore the makeup of collections, possibly hypothesis build, and then once you have ideas, it can send you back to the original text. It's actually not just the style of graph that we're pursuing, though. So Bookworm is more broadly a general tool that you can apply over other corpora. And as part of this project, we're working on making a generalized version that libraries and archives can implement for their own collections. If you want to try that, the link's up there. And it's also not just contingent on year. So, well, that's not highlighting anything. I meant to highlight date year over there. So in the previous slides, everything's been against year, but you don't have to ask questions that are simply longitudinal analyses. You can ask questions like where the different where the different texts in the HathiTrust lie. So here we have LC classes, or who's providing the text. And one of our collaborators, Benjamin Schmidt, came up with a great blog post where he used Bookworm in these more advanced ways to give us more of a sense of what's in that corpus. If anybody wants to play with that, it might still be buggy, or it's not documented, but you can append /D3 to that if you want to play with it. So with that, how am I for time? Okay, perfect. Like I said, we're a few months into a 2-year project, so we're still developing. But we put up an initial prototype this week at bookworm.htrc.illinois.edu. I was hoping, since I'm the last one, that I could show you some of it. Be quick. Yeah, I'm gonna run over. Uh-oh. Testing. Okay. Steven, do you want to type? Okay, so here's what it looks like. There's a default search there. You can click for text and actually see what's underlying everything. So here's one that I posted, and if you guys come up with interesting questions, I'd love to see them down here if you tweet with that hashtag. So here are dance crazes in the 18th and 19th century. So you see mazurka and waltz, allemande, minuet, and you see some grow, some fall. what I found interesting when I was playing with this was if you compare across classes, so if we look at Waltz, for example, you can, you sort of see this echo effect. Whoops. Where's general work? Yeah, so if we look at general work versus literature, you see these echo effects for all the different dances where they start off in general work, and then literature starts catching up, and then it keeps growing if we extend past there. Yeah, our data starts falling off around there. So you see that with Mazurka and things like that. So that's not a finding. That's something interesting that you look at, and then you can start delving deeper. So with that, thank you very much.
Illinois.